Hold on, there is one detail in this case that sounds almost too ordinary to matter. A woman finishes a late shift at a small casino. She locks the door. She starts walking toward her car. Nothing dramatic. Nothing that would make anyone stop the footage and lean closer. But then she turns back. A young man is still there. They talk for a moment. And a few seconds later, he gets into the passenger seat of her car. That is it. No chase. No weapon caught on camera. No argument. No visible struggle. Just a woman leaving work, and a man climbing into the seat beside her. If you watched only that clip, you might think he needed a ride. You might think she was just helping someone get home. You might even think the whole thing was harmless. But by the next day, her car would be found abandoned near a lonely stretch of road. Her dogs would be sitting at home with empty bowls. Her phone would stop answering. And investigators would be staring at a vehicle that looked less like transportation and more like a small, enclosed battlefield. So the question was not simply who got into Lori Bray's car. The real question was this: why did she let him in? And once investigators started asking that question, almost every answer the young man gave them began to fall apart. Lori Bray was 57 years old. She lived in Laurel, Montana, a small city in Yellowstone County, not too far from Billings. Laurel was the kind of place people described with words that can sound simple until something terrible happens there. Quiet. Friendly. Slow. Familiar. A place where people knew each other's routines. A place where many residents would rather make the drive into Billings for work than give up the feeling of living somewhere that still felt human. That part matters. Because when a crime happens in a place like that, the shock is not only about what happened. It is about where it happened. People are not just afraid of the crime. They are afraid because the crime seems to break a silent agreement everyone thought they were living under. Lori was part of that agreement. People who knew her did not describe her as distant or guarded. They described her as gentle, warm, helpful. Someone with a soft voice, a good heart, and the kind of smile that made people feel safe. She loved animals, especially dogs. Her two dogs, Mac and Nikki, were not just pets to her. They were family. She helped with animal rescue work. She supported adoption efforts. She donated money and supplies when she could. If there was a way to help, Lori usually found it. And that is where this case starts to feel uncomfortable. Because Lori's kindness was not a decoration around the case. It was not just a sad detail added later so people would care about her. Her kindness may have been the exact thing someone used to get close to her. At Cedar Ridge Casino, where Lori worked, people knew her as dependable. The casino was not some massive Las Vegas-style operation. It was a local place, the kind of business where regulars become familiar faces. Lori helped customers. She took care of small tasks. She handled errands. She kept things moving. Her co-workers liked her. Her manager trusted her. She was the kind of employee who could work a late shift and be expected to lock up properly, count what needed to be counted, clean what needed to be cleaned, and show up again the next morning. Her son, Justin, knew her routine too. They were close. Even after he had moved out and built his own life, they stayed in touch constantly. A daily call was normal. That detail becomes important later, because when someone with a strong routine suddenly breaks that routine, it is not just a missed call anymore. It becomes a signal. The date written into the file was September 30th, 2019. Lori was working the late shift. The night seemed ordinary. Customers came and went. Machines had to be checked. Money had to be counted. The kind of late-night work that feels repetitive, almost forgettable, until you realize later that one of those forgettable moments was the last normal moment a person ever had. Around 11:20 p.m., Lori finished her work. She gathered her things. She locked the casino. She walked out into the quiet. And this is where the footage becomes important. She did not simply leave. She began moving toward her car, but then something made her stop, turn, and go back. A young man was outside. The camera caught enough to show that they spoke. It caught enough to show that he got into her passenger seat. It caught enough to show Lori driving away with him. But it did not catch what he said. And that missing piece would sit at the center of the whole investigation. Because if he asked for help, Lori was exactly the kind of person who might say yes. The next day, Lori did not come to work. At first, that might not sound alarming. People get sick. Phones die. Alarm clocks fail. Life interrupts routine all the time. But Lori was not casual about work. She was not casual about family. She was not casual about her dogs. Calls went unanswered. Messages did not get replies. Her coworkers felt something was off, but there was still that small voice people have early in a missing person situation, the voice that says, maybe there is an innocent explanation. Maybe she overslept. Maybe she is resting. Maybe the phone is dead. Maybe this will resolve itself in an hour. It did not. Lori's supervisor, Casey, was driving along Airport Road in Laurel when she noticed a car sitting strangely near a stretch of open, isolated land. It was not parked like someone had casually stopped there. It was out of place. Crooked. Wrong. And the model looked familiar. When Casey got closer and saw the plate, that uncomfortable feeling sharpened into fear. It was Lori's car. A 2003 Chrysler. This location made no sense. Lori did not live there. There were no nearby businesses that explained it. No simple reason for her vehicle to be sitting near that isolated area. Casey called Justin. Justin already felt something was wrong because his mother had not called him the way she normally did. He tried to reach her, but again, nothing. No answer. So he went to her house. And what he saw there made the situation worse. The car was not outside. Inside, the home did not look ransacked. The bed was made. The kitchen was in order. Nothing immediately screamed burglary or chaos. But then Justin saw the dogs. Mac and Nikki were there. Their food bowls were empty. Their water was gone. For someone who loved her dogs the way Lori did, this was not normal. Lori would not simply leave them like that. She would not disappear overnight and forget the animals that depended on her. That is the kind of detail that does not need dramatic music. It is quiet, but it hits hard. Because a messy house might suggest panic. A broken door might suggest an intruder. But dogs left hungry and thirsty suggested something else. Lori may never have come home at all. Justin went to the area where the car had been found. When he saw the Chrysler, any hope that this was a misunderstanding started to fade. The sunroof was open. The interior was messy. Lori's wallet, keys, and phone were scattered inside. There were dark red spots in the back seat that looked like blood. And right there, the case shifted. This was no longer just a missing woman. This was a possible crime scene. Police arrived and examined the car. The outside was not badly damaged. There was no obvious sign of a major crash. There were no clear signs that the car had been forced open. That mattered, because if the vehicle had not been broken into, investigators had to ask whether the person who got inside had been allowed in. Inside the car, the details were harder to ignore. A turn signal lever was broken. A radio knob had dirt on it. There were shoe prints on the side door. There were blood-like stains in the back seat. There was a pack of Marlboro cigarettes. There were clothes. Lori's intimate clothing had been violently damaged. Her wallet was empty, even though she was known to carry several $100s in cash. At first, robbery seemed possible. But the scene did not sit neatly inside a simple robbery theory. If someone only wanted money, why was the car left out there? Why were Lori's phone and keys still inside? Why was there evidence of a struggle in the vehicle? And where was Lori? Investigators put out a missing person notice. They asked the public for help. Family, friends, and local residents began searching the area around the car. This is another part of the case that says a lot about Lori. People came out for her. They searched through rough, muddy, open land. The kind of search where every patch of grass starts to look like it might hide something. Where hope and dread move side by side. Where everyone wants to find a clue, but nobody wants to find the wrong clue. For a while, nothing. But police were not only searching on foot. They were also looking at data. Phone records. Bank activity. Casino records. Anything that could show where Lori had gone after leaving work. Her calls and messages appeared ordinary before she disappeared. There were normal contacts with family and co-workers. No obvious threatening call. No strange pattern that immediately explained what happened. Her bank records did not show new withdrawals. But her phone location data gave investigators a different kind of clue. The phone appeared to connect with multiple cell towers from around midnight into the early morning. The movement suggested that Lori, or at least Lori's phone, did not simply travel from the casino to one fixed location. It moved through the area. Investigators began piecing together a rough path. And that raised a disturbing possibility. Maybe Lori had left work and quickly lost control of what happened next. Maybe she had been forced to drive. Maybe the abandoned car was not where everything started, but where someone chose to leave it. That question was still open when the search took a darker turn. A man was riding a bicycle along a secluded wooded path. This was not a busy public area. It was quiet, out of the way, the kind of place someone might pass through without looking too closely. But he noticed something strange near a slope covered with leaves. The leaf pile did not look right. It seemed disturbed, sunken, as if something heavy had gone over it or into it. He looked down the slope. And he saw a shape. When he moved closer, he realized what he had found. Lori! The search was over, but not in the way anyone wanted. Her body was found less than 5 kilometers from where her car had been discovered. Investigators documented the scene carefully. Lori was unclothed. There were injuries to her head and face. There were signs of violence around the neck. There was blood in the nose. Her eyes and lower lip were swollen. Her hair had dirt and leaves in it. There were abrasions on parts of her body, but the surrounding area did not show the kind of blood evidence investigators might expect if the fatal violence had happened right there. That detail mattered. Because it suggested the place where Lori was found may not have been the place where the attack began. The lack of blood around the body, combined with the condition of the scene, led investigators to believe Lori had likely been moved or pushed down the slope after death. Her body appeared to have rolled or fallen into the leaves and become caught there. Nearby, investigators found Lori's cross necklace. And near the top of the slope, they found a shoe print. Not just any shoe print. The pattern and size were consistent with the shoe prints found inside Lori's car. There it was again. The car and the body site were now speaking to each other. One print inside the vehicle. One print near the place where Lori was found. A possible line connecting the struggle to the disposal site. But a shoe print does not name a person by itself. Police still needed the man. And the first real opening came from the casino camera. When investigators reviewed the Cedar Ridge casino surveillance footage, they first looked for the obvious things. Was there a fight inside? Did Lori argue with anyone? Did someone follow her aggressively? Did anything happen during her shift that could explain what came later? The footage did not show a conflict. Lori worked alone late into the night. She seemed to go through the normal routine. Nothing inside the casino looked like the beginning of a violent crime. But outside, near closing, investigators saw the part that changed everything. Lori locked up. She moved toward her car. She turned back. She spoke with a young man. And the young man got into her passenger seat. That was the last time Lori was seen alive on camera. Think about how strange that is. The camera did its job. It captured the final known moment. It gave investigators a face, a body, a movement, a direction. But it still could not answer the most human question in the case. What did he say to her? Police worked backward. If the young man was outside the casino at closing time, maybe he had been inside earlier. Investigators reviewed more footage. And there he was. Around 11 p.m., he had entered the casino. He ordered a drink at the bar. He chatted with people. He stayed until closing. When it was time to leave, Lori told him the casino was closing. There was one small detail here that becomes very important later. Before serving him an alcoholic drink, Lori checked his ID. That means he was young enough that his age needed to be verified. It also suggests that Lori did not treat him like someone she knew well. If this were an old friend, or someone close to her, the ID check would feel different. Not impossible, but different. Employees did not recognize him. He was not one of the regular local faces everyone knew. But a casino customer eventually identified him. His name was Diego. He was 22 years old. He lived in Laurel. Police went to speak with him. At first, Diego did not behave like someone desperate to hide the fact that he had been at the casino. He admitted he was there. He said he had heard the casino offered free drinks, so he went in. He said he spent time there. He said he saw Lori. And according to him, the explanation for the ride was simple. He did not have enough money to get home. Lori noticed him standing there and offered to drive him. A harmless ride. A kind woman helping a young man. If that were all, the story might sound believable. But investigators noticed something as soon as they saw Diego. His face and neck had scratches. His arms had bruises. He had an explanation ready. He said he had gotten into a fight with a friend named Nick a few days earlier. Young men fight, he seemed to suggest. It was embarrassing, but not suspicious. Nick had used a ring. That was why he had scratches. It is the kind of explanation that can pass for normal if you do not yet know what you are looking at. A fight with a friend is not automatically evidence of murder. A scratch is not a confession. A bruise is not a case. So police kept moving. They asked to look at his room. Diego agreed. The room was messy, filled with dirty clothing. At a glance, nothing jumped out strongly enough to end the investigation right there. Investigators were still in the early phase, still testing stories, still separating coincidence from evidence. So they went to Nick. Nick confirmed that he and Diego had fought. That part was true. But Nick said he had not caused the scratches on Diego's face. That is the moment when Diego's first explanation started to bend. Not break completely, but bend. Because if the scratches did not come from Nick, where did they come from? Investigators looked for Diego's movements before he reached Cedar Ridge Casino. And this is where the case picked up one of its most unsettling details. Before the casino, Diego had gone to another place, the Locomotive Bar. While he was there, he reportedly asked female employees and female customers if they would drive him home. Not one person. Not a casual question to a friend. He asked women for a ride. Nobody agreed. And here is the part that makes you stop. Surveillance and witness accounts from the bar showed that Diego's face was clean at that time. No scratches. So when did the scratches appear? Not before the bar. Not from Nick, if Nick was telling the truth. Somewhere after Diego left the bar, and before police later saw him, those marks appeared on his face and neck. Now place that next to the casino footage. Diego asks women at the bar for a ride. No one says yes. He goes to the casino. He stays until closing. Lori, a woman known for helping people, ends up letting him into her car. I am not saying the file proves every thought in his head before he got into that passenger seat. It does not. We cannot pretend to know with certainty what he planned before that moment. But the pattern is hard to ignore. He had been trying to get a woman to drive him. Lori was the one who agreed. And by the next day, Lori was missing. That is not a small detail. That is the kind of detail that changes the emotional temperature of the entire case. Because suddenly the ride does not feel random anymore. It feels like the answer to a search. Police now had Diego on camera. They had him in Lori's passenger seat. They had his face showing injuries he could not convincingly explain. They had reports that he had asked other women for rides before Lori. They had the abandoned car. They had the shoe prints. They had the body site. But they still needed stronger proof. Suspicion is not enough. And Diego was still talking. That is where his story began to change. The first version was simple. Diego was at the casino. He needed a ride. Lori helped him. She dropped him off. They went their separate ways. Clean. Simple. Easy to understand. But when a simple story is surrounded by difficult evidence, it starts to sound less like an explanation and more like a wall. Investigators returned with more authority. A search warrant was obtained for the place where Diego was staying. When police questioned him again, he was not as calm as before. His answers were less steady. His eyes moved more. His confidence seemed thinner. And his story changed. Now, according to Diego, it had not just been a ride home. He said that he and Lori connected that night. He suggested there had been a consensual encounter. Afterward, they separated and had no further contact. Listen to what this kind of shift does. The first story tries to explain why he was in the car. The second story tries to explain why his DNA might be found. That matters. Because if a person changes a story before the evidence comes back, you have to ask what they are trying to prepare for. Investigators searched his room more carefully. This time, the room began to speak. They found cash hidden in a cardboard box. That mattered because Lori's wallet had been found empty, and she was known to carry cash. They found clothing that appeared to have been treated with bleach. A hoodie and pants connected to what he had been wearing that night had been cleaned in a way that suggested someone was trying to remove evidence. And then there were the shoes. A pair of black Nike sneakers. They were wet. They looked recently washed. That image is hard to forget. A messy room. Bleached clothing. Wet shoes. A young man changing his story. And investigators already had shoe prints from the car and near the place where Lori was found. When those shoes were compared to the prints, the pattern became a major piece of the case. The shoe prints from Lori's car and the shoe print near the slope matched the pattern of Diego's Nike shoes. A shoe does not have to speak loudly to be devastating. It just has to be where it should not be. Inside Lori's car. Near the place where her body was found. Back in Diego's room, freshly washed. And police found something else that made the timeline feel even more suspicious. Diego's phone search history. Within hours of Lori's disappearance, searches appeared on his phone asking how long investigations usually last, how long FBI investigations last, and whether there is a time limit for police investigating a person. By themselves, those searches do not prove murder. People search strange things. People watch crime shows. People get curious. That is true. But timing matters. And the timing here was brutal. A woman vanishes after giving Diego a ride. Her car is found with signs of a struggle. Her body is found in a secluded area. Diego has unexplained scratches. His shoes appear to match prints connected to the car and body site. His clothing appears bleached. His shoes are wet. And his phone is asking how long investigations can last. At some point, innocent explanations start to become crowded. Diego tried another one. He suggested the searches were related to crime shows he had been watching. Maybe. But when a case has too many maybes, investigators do not ignore them. They stack them. They test them. They compare them against physical evidence. And the physical evidence was still coming. 3 days later, Diego contacted police again. This time, he had a third story. Not just a ride. Not just a spontaneous encounter. Now he claimed he and Lori had been in a secret relationship since early 2018. According to him, they had kept it hidden because of the age difference and because Lori did not want people to know. He said the relationship had been stable. He said the night she disappeared was part of that secret relationship. He said he lied earlier only to protect it. Here is where the file becomes almost painfully strange. Because this third version is not a small adjustment. It is a completely different reality. First, he barely knew her. Then, they met and became intimate that night. Then, they had secretly been together for a year and a half. That kind of progression is not a normal clarification. It looks like a person moving the target every time the evidence gets closer. Investigators checked the relationship claim. Phone records. Social media. Contacts. Messages. Calls. Nothing supported a secret year-and-a-half relationship. No pattern of communication. No hidden thread. No digital trail that would make sense if two people had been involved for that long. And remember the ID check. Casino footage showed Lori checking Diego's identification before serving him. That single, almost boring act became a problem for his third story. Because if Lori and Diego had been secretly together for a year and a half, why would she need to check his ID like a stranger at the bar? Diego had an answer for that too. He claimed they only met at the casino. They did not call. They did not text. They avoided leaving a trail. It is not impossible for people to hide relationships. But in an investigation, the question is not whether something can be imagined. The question is whether the evidence supports it. And here, the evidence did not support him. It supported the opposite. The file was now building a very clear pattern. Diego's words kept changing. The evidence kept staying in place. The camera still showed him entering Lori's car. The bar still showed him asking women for rides. His face still showed scratches that were not explained by Nick. The car still showed signs of struggle. The body site still had a shoe print. The room still had bleached clothing and wet shoes. The phone still had investigation searches. But the strongest evidence had not arrived yet. The lab results were coming. There is a reason forensic evidence can change the entire weight of a case. People can lie. Memories can bend. Witnesses can misread moments. Fear can make someone hide something. Shame can make someone tell half the truth. Even surveillance footage can leave out sound, intention, and context. But physical evidence can be harder to move around. Not impossible. Evidence still has to be collected correctly, tested correctly, interpreted carefully. But when separate pieces begin pointing to the same person from different angles, the case becomes much harder to escape. In Lori's case, investigators sent multiple items for testing. The shoes. The clothing. The car evidence. Samples from Lori's body. Material from under her fingernails. That last part matters deeply. If someone is attacked and fights back, their body may preserve a record of that fight. Not a full story. Not every moment. But enough. Under Lori's fingernails, investigators found skin tissue. The DNA matched Diego. That is the kind of evidence that does not fit comfortably with his first story. A simple ride home does not explain why Lori would have his skin beneath her nails. It also does not sit cleanly with his later stories, because this evidence appears in the context of the car damage, the injuries, the body site, the shoe prints, and the changing statements. The lab results did not stand alone. They locked into everything else. Diego's Nike shoes matched the shoe print pattern found in Lori's vehicle and near the place where her body was discovered. DNA connected him to evidence associated with Lori's car and clothing. Lori's fingernails connected him to a struggle. The clothing and shoes in his room suggested cleanup. The search history suggested fear of investigation. The camera placed him in the passenger seat. By this point, the case was no longer a scattered collection of odd details. It was a net. And the tighter investigators pulled, the less room Diego had to move. Police arrested him on October 8 and charged him with murder. Bail was set at $500,000. When the news spread, some people who knew Diego were stunned. They described him as quiet, shy, polite, someone who did not seem like the type. That phrase appears in cases again and again, and it always sounds the same because people want danger to look like danger. They want violence to announce itself. They want the person capable of a brutal crime to be obviously broken, obviously frightening, obviously separate from normal life. But real cases do not always offer that comfort. Sometimes the person sitting quietly nearby is exactly the person investigators are trying to understand. And in this case, the public disbelief slowly weakened as the evidence became clearer. Still, evidence in a police file is one thing. Evidence in court is another. The case had to be tested in front of a jury. The trial was delayed because of the pandemic, and when it finally began in March 2021, the courtroom was packed. People wanted answers. Lori's family wanted accountability. The community wanted to understand how a woman so known for kindness could leave work one night and never come home. The prosecution built its case around a simple, devastating theory. Diego used Lori's kindness to gain access to her car. Once inside that vehicle, he attempted to assault her. Lori fought back. The struggle left marks, broken parts, blood, DNA, and shoe prints. He killed her, disposed of her body in a secluded area, and tried to clean away the evidence. The defense tried to create doubt. They questioned whether Lori's car might have been moved before it was found. They challenged the reliability of evidence. They raised concerns about DNA collection and procedure. They suggested there could be unknown parts of Lori's private life, trying to make Diego's relationship claims feel less impossible. But speculation has a problem in court. It needs weight. And compared with the prosecution's chain of evidence, those defense arguments did not carry enough. The jury heard about the footage. They heard about the ride. They heard about the bar where Diego had asked other women for rides. They heard about the scratches. They heard about Nick saying he did not cause the facial injuries. They heard about the abandoned car. They heard about the phone searches. They heard about the bleached clothing in wet Nike shoes. They heard about the shoe prints. They heard about the DNA. And they heard about the stories. A ride home. A one-night encounter. A secret relationship. Each version seemed to appear only when the previous one could no longer survive. On March 22, the sixth day of trial, the jury deliberated for only about 2 hours. They found Diego guilty of murder. For Lori's family and supporters in the courtroom, the verdict was emotional. People cried. People held each other. A long period of waiting, fear, grief, and legal uncertainty finally reached the point where the justice system said clearly, guilty. But the strangest moment came after the verdict. Diego, who had spent the case denying responsibility, suddenly asked to speak. And in court, he admitted he had sexually assaulted Lori. The moment was so unusual that even the judge remarked that in decades of work, he had not seen something like it. Why say it then? Why after the verdict? Why after the jury had already decided? The file does not give a perfect answer. Some believed he may have been trying, too late, to influence sentencing. Maybe he wanted to appear remorseful when there was no other move left. Maybe he simply understood that the evidence had closed around him. But the timing made the admission feel less like truth freely given and more like truth forced into the open after every lie had failed. In June 2021, Diego was sentenced to life in prison, with parole eligibility only after at least 35 years. Legally, that ended the case. But emotionally, cases like this do not end with a sentence. Because the hardest part is not only the loss. It is the smallness of the moment that led there. A ride. A question. A woman helping someone who said he needed help. That is what makes Lori Bray's case so haunting. Not because kindness is wrong. It is not. Lori's kindness was part of why people loved her. It was part of the life she built. It was part of the way she moved through the world. The disturbing part is that someone may have recognized that kindness as an opening. And the evidence suggests that once he found that opening, he stepped through it. There is one detail I keep coming back to. Before Lori gave Diego a ride, other women had refused him. That does not prove he planned every part of what happened. It does not prove exactly what was in his mind when he entered the Locomotive Bar, or when he walked into Cedar Ridge Casino, or when he waited outside near closing. But it does change how the night feels. Because Lori was not simply the first person he randomly encountered. According to the file, he had already asked women for rides and been turned down. So when he later ended up outside the casino with Lori, and Lori became the person who said yes, the case takes on a darker shape. It becomes less about a chance meeting and more about a pattern that finally found someone vulnerable to it. Not vulnerable because she was weak. Vulnerable because she was decent. And that is a very different thing. The case also shows how early assumptions can mislead people. At first, investigators considered robbery. That made sense. Lori's wallet was empty. She was known to carry cash. The car was abandoned. But if police had stopped there, they might have missed the deeper pattern. The empty wallet mattered, but it did not explain everything. It did not explain the casino footage. It did not explain why Lori would allow someone into the car. It did not explain Diego's scratches. It did not explain the bar witnesses. It did not explain the bleached clothing. It did not explain the wet shoes. It did not explain the body site. It did not explain the DNA under Lori's nails. That is the heart of the Gray Verdict Files version of this case. Not just one clue. A sequence of clues that kept refusing to let the simplest explanation survive. A car abandoned where it should not be. Dogs left without food or water. A casino camera showing the last passenger. A young man who had been asking women for rides. Scratches that appeared after his face had been clean. A friend who did not support his explanation. A room with bleached clothes and wet shoes. A search history full of questions about investigations. A secret relationship story with no digital shadow. An ID check that made that secret relationship nearly impossible to believe. A shoe print in the car. A matching shoe print near the slope. DNA beneath Lori's fingernails. Each detail is not equally dramatic. Some are small. Some are quiet. Some could almost be missed if you read too quickly. But together, they do what strong evidence does. They make the lies smaller. They make the room narrower. They leave fewer places for an innocent explanation to stand. And by the end, the case is not just about proving what Diego did. It is about watching how every attempt to explain it away created another question he could not answer. Lori Bray's life should not be reduced to the way it ended. That is important. Because true crime often has a bad habit of letting the final, worst moment swallow everything that came before it. Lori was not just a victim in a file. She was a mother. A coworker. A friend. A dog lover. A woman people trusted. Someone who gave to animal rescues. Someone who helped customers. Someone who made a small workplace feel warmer. Someone whose son expected to hear from her because hearing from her was part of life. That is why the empty dog bowls hit so hard. That is why the unanswered calls mattered. That is why the abandoned car felt wrong before anyone had all the facts. The people around Lori knew her rhythm. And when that rhythm broke, they felt it. Cases often turn on that kind of knowledge. Not advanced technology. Not a dramatic confession. Not a genius detective noticing something impossible. Sometimes the first alarm comes from someone saying, "She would not do this. She would not miss work like this. She would not ignore her son like this. She would not leave her dogs like this." That human knowledge pushed people to look harder. And once they looked harder, the evidence started appearing. But even with the conviction, some questions remain uncomfortable. What exactly did Diego say outside the casino? Did he ask Lori for a ride the same way he had asked women earlier? Did he present himself as stranded? Harmless? Embarrassed? In need? Was Lori's decision made in a few seconds because helping someone felt natural to her? The file cannot replay that conversation for us. The camera saw the body language, but not the words. And maybe that is why the opening image is so haunting. A woman turns back. A man gets into her car. A good deed becomes the last known moment before everything changes. There is no way to tell this case honestly without saying that Lori's kindness mattered. But there is also no honest way to turn that into blame. Kindness did not kill Lori. The person who chose violence did. The lesson is not that people should stop being good. That would be too easy, and honestly, too cruel. The lesson is darker and more complicated. Kindness needs boundaries because some people do not see kindness as generosity. They see it as access. Lori's case reminds us that danger does not always announce itself with rage. Sometimes it stands outside a workplace late at night and asks for help. Sometimes it looks young, quiet, even shy. Sometimes it has a story ready. And when that story fails, it builds another one. A ride home. A casual encounter. A secret relationship. One lie after another, each one trying to cover the same truth. But the truth was still there. In the car. In the shoes. In the search history. In the scratches. In the footage. And under Lori's fingernails. That final detail may be the strongest one. Because even in the middle of fear, Lori fought. She left behind a record. And that record helped pull the case out of the dark. So when people remember this case, they may remember the casino camera. They may remember the abandoned Chrysler. They may remember the wet Nike shoes. They may remember the strange search history. They may remember the man who changed his story again and again. But the part that stays with me is much simpler. Lori left work and tried to go home. Someone asked for a place in her car. And a few seconds of kindness became the hinge of an entire murder case. That is what makes this file so difficult to close. Because the most terrifying detail was not hidden deep in the investigation. It was right there at the beginning. A passenger seat. A late night ride. And a woman who believed helping someone was still the right thing to do.